We'll cover that in a second. Yeah.
Here we go. Hey, we're live. There we go. Sorry for about the handful of minutes late, but welcome to the IBM Developer Twitch channel. And I have 3 friends here today. How about we start with you, Jay? Who are you?
Who am I? I know it's been a while. It didn't even feel like it had been. I just missed 1 week and all of a sudden, poof, time flies. My name is Jason Newbies. I work at Red Hat. I'm a developer advocate, and I'm the reason we were late because I was already off topic, which anyone who's been to the stream before knows that's kind of how we roll. So we're off to a fantastic start if I'm already behind.
Thanks. And Brian, who are you?
Hey, I'm Brian Tanis. I am a developer advocate at Red Hat, the same as Jason. So yeah, I'm pretty excited. Again, I did skip last week as well, so I feel like a little out of the loop, but it's all good. Good to be back.
Nice. And my final friend, Cedric. I think I can consider you a friend now.
I think we're there.
There you go. Who are you?
Hi, my name is Cedric Clyburn. I'm Jason's manager, or he's my manager. I'm an intern, developer advocate. I've been on the stream a couple times, but I had my smart glasses on. I don't have them with me now. But yeah, I've done some videos on Podman, got into it a little bit, but I'm excited for what we're about to do here.
Awesome. And yes, hi, I'm JJ. I'm a developer advocate for the IBM Cloud. And I just basically provide the hardware for us to be able to do these streams. I don't actually do anything. But yes, so this week we're going to do something a little bit more basic than we normally do. We've been traditionally spending our time in the OpenShift world, doing relatively deep OpenShift playing. But recently, there's been some conversations around containerization and taking a step back. And actually talking about what containerization is and how the advantages are. So we're gonna take this stream and talk about something called Podman, which is, if you look at the title of the stream, I say learning Podman instead of Docker with Red Hatters and JJ. So that's what we're gonna do today. We're gonna play with Podman from the ground up, and luckily Cedric has been focusing a lot on this. So we can have a lot of good fun. Basically, I've got a couple machines that we're going to play around with. We're going to have some peanut gallery commentary from Tanis and Jay, and then we're going to see what we can get done. Seem reasonable?
Yeah, I like Brian nodding along to that. And I'm going to take away the stream already. Brian, did you get a new camera, or did you just change the angle and the lights better?
You look good, Brian.
I did quite a bit of upgrade. I'll take a picture and I'll show it here on the stream in a little bit. But yeah, I've got a little microphone upgrade, and then I'm using a GoPro that I had just laying in a box for a long time, just hooked up. So yeah, it looks pretty good. The lighting is probably the biggest thing I would imagine.
Okay,
that makes it look better though.
Yeah, I couldn't tell, and the angle's different too. So I didn't know. I have my window over here, and if I don't close the blinds, it's just one side of me is just completely white. So I wasn't sure if that slight change just changed all the difference, or if you got some new hardware. Very cool.
Yep.
Nice. Okay, so I'm brain fart. Sorry. Let's just kick off everything. As Cedric has a bunch of ice cream in his mouth, I'm going to call on him and ask him. There you go. So I know nothing. What is Podman?
Oh my God. All right. Incredible. Incredible. So Podman is a Red Hat project that essentially allows you to run containers without the need of, in simple terms, without the need of the Docker registry or anything like that. So it's daemonless. It has this feature where you can run containers without needing root. And so if you're looking to increase your security when it comes to literally everything. You know, running a container without root is game changing, right?
Mm-hmm.
So Podman allows for that. Podman's also in a family of a couple other tools called Buildah, Cryo, at Jason. Finally pronounced it right. Yeah. But if you've used Docker before, you already know Podman. Like, it is literally the same commands ported over. That was their goal, essentially. But yeah, that's the essential spiel about Podman. Is just an easy, great way to run containers.
So in essence, it's, if you bear with me for this analogy, if I have the porcelain of using Docker and I have my normal Docker run commands and Docker compose and things like that, Podman is just the same porcelain with a different level of plumbing, where you just guys ripped out all the way containerization works and put it in a different way. Is that accurate?
Almost. Let me jump in.
Yeah.
So the compose stuff did not come over.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, it's I'm not even, let's use this as a quick relevant tangent. I don't know a ton about Docker Compose. My understanding is it's a way of building multiple images. But
no.
Okay.
You create like a so think of maybe like a manifest that you'd have in Kubernetes. Like, you define some containers, and you have to define a service and an ingress or a route, right? So you have all those like in one, or you can have all those things in one file, and you could, that one file could also be multiple different, pods that are running or deployments. Like, Docker Compose lets you set up services that are, like tied to each other, is kind of how I see it. So like, if I am running a service that needs a database, it might be cool to use a Docker Compose file just because it's really quick. I could, kick it off, and that Docker Compose file is YAML. It's simple. I could basically just say, I need this plus, Postgres, for example, and link them together in one easy to use file. Podman doesn't support that, but there is a project called Podman-Compose that the community has been working on, and that does work to some extent. There's some things that I know that are a little bit weird, like if it might use some advanced like networking issues or something. It's been a little bit, honestly, since I've looked. Let me get the link. I'll put it in the chat. But it does have a way to do it. One of the things with Podman, though, instead of using Docker Compose files, you could use Kubernetes YAML to create pods and things like that.
Oh,
so
that's
pretty
cool.
neat. Yeah.
You said that's with the Podman version of it.
With just Podman. So the idea was they wanted to, as far as I know, they wanted to make it easy to run pods. Podman, obviously. So pods are Kubernetes concept. So all the, or well, maybe not, they're using Kubernetes. So anyways, that is there. And it's possible to use that. So the idea is you should be writing the YAML and stuff in pods, for example. But hey, if you want to use Docker Compose, there's a community repo that does some of that, or they're working on it at least. Which
makes sense, because Podman, it went to be completely API. To go back to JJ's analogy, API, there's probably a term for this that I can't think of, but consistent, compatible, I guess. Like the running joke, but it's not even a joke, but there's definitely material out there that says alias Podman to Docker, and
it's on the front of the page.
Script should run. Is it really out there? 100%. Yeah. Okay. Perfect.
It's literally the second, like the third thing you read on the page.
Okay. Yeah, I knew I saw it somewhere.
Just to kind of tie off that Compose thing. There's a application out there called Bookstack, which is like a wiki thing that a lot of people use for self-hosting. This right here is the Docker Compose file, or at least pretty damn close to it, to run it. And as you can see, this is the actual container, the actual application, and they have MariaDB. And the beauty of this is the idea is that it's really fast iteration. So you could, in theory, change this image really easily. And Docker Compose is smart enough to like pull out the Docker or the database and put in like another database if you're doing some development. the interesting thing about Compose in general, though, is that there are people out there who actually use it in production, right? Where you build your whole application stack with a Docker Compose file, and as long as it has to just sit on one machine, you can just do like Docker Compose up, and all of a sudden everything gets wired together properly, and you can do what you need to. When you start looking
directly in Docker, not in a full-blown orchestration engine.
Correct, but then there was a narrative from Docker Compose to Swarm, so then you have like orchestration across multiple machines. And I realize we're not talking about Podman, but I'm just trying to level set the whole conversation, right? Where the idea was Swarm was supposed to be multiple machines, so you take a Compose file that would eventually orchestrate across all the different machines or whatever. And then Kubernetes came along and ate Swarm's lunch because Swarm was shit, right? Like that's what it boils down to.
Pretty much, yeah. And then they tried to,
It was really easy to connect nodes together. I'll say that. I used Swarm a little bit,
but that's it, right?
Yeah,
like there was nothing else.
Right.
It's nothing else.
So I pasted the links for those two, and I just saw that the article on Podman running pods was updated. Now Podman supports running Kubernetes deployments. So the advantage to that I could see is I could use Podman on one node in exactly that use case that you suggested. So, maybe I'm running production and I've got one, machine and, I'm fine. I don't have a lot to scale right now. Well, later on, as your app grows or as users come in, you can, already have a deployment set up that you're using that should easily move and migrate into Kubernetes. So I think that that's an awesome way to do it. And that's the general idea of, how to run these types of services with Podman. As far as I've known, if anybody's listening out and there's a better suggestion, I think that's it. There's also a project, if you don't want to use the Podman Compose, although it looks more official now, it's in the containers organization, so that's the official one. There's also a service that runs that'll convert Docker Compose stuff to Kubernetes pods. I can't remember exactly what it's called. I could Google it a little bit, but that also, I think it's just called Compose with a K.
Yes, I know. Yeah, I'm with you now. I'm with you. It is Compose, yeah.
Yeah, so that will also, or should also work in Podman. You might have to edit things a little bit, but I think the other two ways are a little nicer. With Podman, one of the things that I saw that's neat is, in addition to the root list stuff, is that I don't have a service or a daemon that's running. So like I don't have the Docker, always checking and making sure things are working. Podman launches, pods and builds containers, and if I use Docker, it's easily transferable. But I'm not using a daemon to do that. I could use systemd if I want, and there's other ways to do it to maintain and make sure that things are up and keep state and all that stuff. But that's I think one of the bigger differences, kind of.
No, I wouldn't even say the kind of. That's usually the thing I lead with is it's daemonless, and that was the way I heard it, a big selling point, and not necessarily from a value add as so much as a user experience of the annoyance of Docker run. Like, oh, I can't attach to the Docker daemon. It's like, son of a bitch. Or I shouldn't even say that. Not even run, building, and Docker build, and I can't attach to the daemon. You're like, you gotta be kidding me. Like, I don't need a daemon for this. So yeah, I wouldn't downplay that. That's usually how I push things.
I had to put a PR in. Sorry.
I mean, we are about 15 minutes in, so it's about time.
Yeah, it's about time.
True story.
Oh my God.
All right, Cedric. Sorry, we completely went a different direction here. So what would you like to tell us?
Wonderful. No.
Yeah. What else, sir? What else should we talk about here for Podman as a general thing? What else would you like to tell us?
Podman's fun. Yeah, and I like that. Brian, you brought up integration with systemd. Like that is something really unique about it. You can use whatever. When it comes to daemonless capabilities, you can use literally whatever, key.io, the Docker Hub. For the video, I use the Docker Hub because, I mean, that's what I started out using too. But you can port forward with Podman. And so I think that might be fun today if we have time, not just only to build or run a container, but to also port forward and see what we can do with that. Maybe make a website. I don't know, we can do anything, right? But yeah, and there's lots of great things that you can do with it. But as far as like the gist of it, that is it. I didn't know much about cluster.
Compose.
What was the old tech? Compose. Yeah, Compose. And so I haven't personally used that, but I'm glad we brought that up as well.
Yeah, in fact, I'm wondering if at some point in the next couple of weeks, if you end up doing a Podman Part 2 video that talks about Podman Compose and Podman Play, because those are pieces I hadn't really worked with, but maybe I've always approached it as the most fundamental building block, right? I've always viewed it as this is image building and container running bare bones. Replace it, don't have your Docker daemon. I hadn't realized how much it seems to be skewing toward a very subtle, very clever migration path into Kubernetes, where it's like, cool, you can also do a Podman Play and use these kubeyaml definitions. So I could actually see a follow-up video where you start to be like, okay, so you've been using Podman, here's how you use what you've learned in that as the intro to Kubernetes. I think it's kind of neat.
The whole circle is happening.
Yeah, it's such a subtle and smart path into building things up. And I mean, I almost wish I had approached your internship this way in a teaching perspective, because I think it's very neat to be able to take someone who doesn't have container knowledge and then start with this and then be like, now write a pod definition and be like, cool, you can run it in Podman. Now here's doing it in Kubernetes and here's all the extra benefits to that.
You could be like, oh, so, hey, I've been working on, having these things running. I've been using Docker Compose. It's been pretty nice. And I recently switched to Podman, show the Podman Compose thing. And then you could be like, well, looking around a little bit more, there's a better way that I found that allows me to do this additional things, migrate to Kubernetes easier later down the road if I need it. That's kind of cool. I'm
sure we'd get pushback if we went on the nose and called it from Docker to Kubernetes in 5 minutes or something like that. But I like that we kind of backdoor in that as the point of the video and the concept of it. So start keeping that in mind, Cedric. You might be doing a Podman Part 2, advanced Podman video in the next couple of weeks. People
would love the Docker to Kubernetes in 5 minutes. People love 5-minute conversations. They absolutely do.
I'm glad you said that. So Cedric, I've been kind of pointing him toward a few key things. You always see the talks, the For Mere Mortals talks, how that's like a phrase that kind of found its way into the industry, that there's no formal definition. You're never going to see it in school, but that's a style of talk that anybody can do. But that phrase, you see it and you have an expectation. In 5 minutes is kind of another one where you see that, and I personally am more inclined to watch that kind of video. I like the Mere Mortals videos because you're like, okay, they're going to take something super complex and they're going to make it as dumb as humanly possible, and I may understand it this time. There's been, I don't know if he still does it, but for years in a row at Summit, there was almost positive it was SC Linux for Mere Mortals, and it was like one of the top ranking sessions for multiple years in a row at Red Hat Summit, because SE Linux is difficult, and no, I take it back. It was either SE Linux, and there might have been that one, and then there was another one about RPM building, and that's a much older talk where probably still relevant, but where it just got huge turnout every single year that they did it.
I think I remember the SE Linux or hearing about that. I didn't get to attend one, but I remember that. But I completely agree. I think that having the primer, like a 5 minute or whatever, like, hey, this explains it, but doesn't go insanely deep. And then, that lets you kind of think about it and understand it. Then later on, if you really need to dig into it, you then already have like that priming knowledge, and you already know what's there, right? You know what you need to know. I think that's a cool way to learn, and I think it makes sense. I think that
It
works
does,
for
and
me.
it's such a skill to have to entice people in 5 minutes. Like, it's so important, it's so useful, and how do you distill it down to something interesting without it being too much of a whirlwind that you lose them?
Yep, it's a skill. It truly is. All right, just to bring it back to Podman.
Yep.
Is this really just yum install Podman? Is it really, that's it? Wow.
Wait to see what it actually pulls down, because it's not going to be like 1,000 dependencies either. Okay, it's a little more than I expected it to be, but
Nice.
Still, whoops.
That's not, it's not horrible. It's only 25.
Yeah, that's still impressive.
Yeah, and to clarify, what distribution are we using?
This is just CentOS 7. I
Okay.
couldn't get it myself. Sand on the CentOS 8 box because of reasons. But the Vagrant box that I have sitting over here was actually what I did on the stream last week. Is I created a 32. I pulled down the core 32 base Fedora, and I injected Docker on there with Docker Compose. So I was able to. The theory being, I wanted to do AWX on there and pull down the compose file for AWX, and then have it be able to spin up automatically. So I'd have like a disposable AWX machine where I could just play around, do all the GUI stuff, see how it all comes together. But after 2 hours of finally getting this to the point where I was proud of it, I was like, yeah, I'm gonna stop streaming. I'm tired.
So I don't know if he knows it or not, but I'm going to assume he doesn't based on he's an intern. JJ, 30 seconds of what Vagrant is.
Oh,
for Cedric, for
yeah.
our viewers, but for Cedric too, as kind of a reference point.
Sure. So there's an application out there which is kind of a default virtualization for your laptop or your desktop in that case, called Virtualbox, which I just brought up here. It was open source, and yes, I'm always running behind. But Oracle bought it. But it's became kind of like an industry standard for the cloudy people to start using. It was just the kind of the way, like a lot of Rails people used it, just kind of happened. Vagrant is a wrapper around Virtualbox. There's a lot of different of the providers, and that's what they call them, or providers, where you can actually talk to actual clouds and all. But first, the default one is Virtualbox. Oh, sorry, Vagrant or Virtualbox. Vagrant talks to Virtualbox, and you can, as you can see here, in code, declare stuff. So for instance, instead of me having to click through and say that I want to open up port 80 to port 8080 on my laptop, I just write that out all as code. I tell the memory that I want 4 gigs of memory here. The interesting one is usually this section, which is the provisioning. Chef, Ansible, Puppet, all have, or Salt, all actually have provisioners that can inject themselves into the Virtualbox and actually do post-provisioning. So the idea is you can get a whole dev environment built with just typing Vagrant up. So just to prove this to you, if you look here, you'll see that I have a Vagrant file and I have this data directory, which actually gets automatically mounted into it. So if I do Vagrant up here, you'll see this. It only takes a second. It'll see if there's the box is already there. There it is. As you can see, Virtualbox already kicked off doing the thing, pulls it all in, starts it all up.
Yeah, and you'll see there'll be projects
awesome.
on GitHub like that will have a Vagrant file, and the instructions for here's how you get this project running is literally Vagrant up. Just check out the Git repository Vagrant up. So it's a lot simpler than, and I mean, I'm sure they still do it, and I'm sure this is not a fair way of saying it, but I'm going to anyway. But if you're not using containers, this was a nice kind of early way of saying, I'm going to completely encapsulate a runtime environment in a lightweight-ish situation where you're not saying install all these things locally. I say the ish because obviously a VM is magnitudes heavier than a container, but the idea of, and this is, I'm probably going back 8 to 10 years where it was git checkout, Vagrant up, and you're ready to start coding. And that was like, not mind-blowing at the time, but it was really badass to be like, cool, that's all you need to know, and I can start typing.
There are stories before containerization was common, is a good word for it. that people wouldn't get developer environments up and running for weeks and weeks of time, where you spend weeks and weeks of your first couple weeks at a job trying to get the development environment up and running so you can actually do a commit against it. If you've ever read the book, The Unicorn Project, which is the follow into the Phoenix Project, that's actually the first thing they start talking about, is how much of a clusterfuck their development process is. And it's a very common thing at major corporations. But again, this
God.
is
for Vagrant and containers, I must say.
I've been at past jobs, and I remember he hands me the laptop, and he's like, all right, he's like, it's Wednesday. See if you can get the unit tests running by Friday. And that's not meant to be an obnoxious thing. It's legitimate. It's probably going to take you this long to set up your local environment and stuff. And part of that was download your tools and things like that. And, I'm talking to Cedric when I say this, we've all been doing this for a while now, that we kind of know how to rebuild a box and get it to where we need to relatively easy. During that 2-hour mammoth what's coming in OpenShift yesterday, like I rebuilt my laptop and got almost my entire environment set up on it to where I needed to. Like I used to be much more particular about customizing Gnome and ricing the shit out of it, having all these custom things. Now I'm like, yeah, if I can't do it in a dot file and a symbolic link, I'm like, I can't be bothered anymore, because I'm just going to trash this install in 6 months and put the newest Fedora on. But there was definitely a period where I was customizing the absolute hell out of everything with key maps and things like that.
Yep, it's true, and it's a rite of passage, right? Like you have to understand a good engineer understands their tools, and a better engineer is a toolsmith, and the best engineer just does everything by default.
It's funny because I remember there was a guy a couple years older than me at Red Hat when I was on the satellite project who the exact same thing. Like I was in that period where everything was super custom, and I'm like, I was running this modified version of my FVWM, and he's like, yeah, I use basic bash and VI. And he was a plugin guy for VI too, but still he was just like, I can't be bothered anymore. Yep. Then a couple of years later, yeah, I hit that point too.
Yep. It's like the number one thing that you got to do is install the right font.
Nice.
It's funny because yes, that was it for a while, and now I'm on the default Fedora and I'm completely fine with it.
Yeah, now the defaults are good, right? Things are cool. Like I'm very similar. Like I used to have like all the crazy stuff and tweaked out whatever I could and played around with all that, and it's good to learn. I think that's really good to learn, and it's fun. Like, oh hey, this is cool. Like I made this work, and you could visually see it, and it's really neat. And still to some extent, like it's still nice, but I mean, when you're working in CLI a lot, like whatever, install the right font. But the default stuff works pretty well, and like the graphical stuff now works pretty well too. Like I don't have a problem. Visual Studio Code, that's what you install, right?
Yeah, I still can't. I'll install my JetBrains series, especially now that I learned there's the educator's license, and that was what I did yesterday because I get it through Villanova, and then I just plowed through all of them, because as much as I want to use VS Code, and I've tried to customize it, and the customization, I will give it credit for this, that it's fairly simple to take just that settings file, throw it into a dot files, and have it get rebuilt across multiple machines, but it just doesn't feel right to me. And maybe that's 15 plus years of IntelliJ talking, where I'm just like too used to that, but point still stands. Like, you're absolutely right about, you just kind of know what works and everything like that.
Like, I think IntelliJ is probably like the closest that I remember whenever, what was it? I used like Microsoft Visual, or not, is it just Visual Studio? Like
Microsoft
desktop
Suite for
app.
the languages, yeah.
Yeah, like, and that was freaking awesome. Like the click here really easily to go to the docs, or the where this branch is or whatever in your code. Like that was really neat. You like Visual Studio Code, you could do it somewhat, but I totally understand what you're saying. Like you can't, it's not the same.
Yeah,
it's not as good.
So Cedric, as you saw, the machine rebooted. It was a requirement due to one of the stupid firewall things inside of it. But now as you see, I did Vagrant SSH. Now I do Docker run, and I have Docker up and running on that machine inside the thing. So it just
Which,
like
if
whatever.
you email you that Vagrant file, you could be this exact point in 5 minutes.
Yep.
And not even
really
necessarily
cool.
have to care about what he did to set it up. JJ, while you're here, do a DNF install of Podman. Just because I think that the requirements, I want to sanity check myself that the requirements are a lot smaller on Fedora, because I swear I just installed it and it was a lot less dependencies. But then again, maybe I had updated previously and pulled down things. That's more what I was expecting. Like, it's relatively lightweight in terms of what it comes down with it.
And for what it's worth, yeah, Podman will install, I mean, Ubuntu, Fedora, Ascent, like whatever you're using, it should work.
So if I was going to be spinning up a machine and I was choosing the CentOS path, do I do CentOS 8 or CentOS Stream?
Depends on yeah, what you're looking for, I think, because like CentOS is going to be like majoring here. I think the Stream is going to be a, what is it, it's a rolling release that should be stable enough to use, but new packages, so still, like, you know, keep that in mind. At least that's how I see it.
Okay.
CentOS Stream, I think, will, you know, like, you just maintain that and it will continuously upgrade as things go along. But you might, you know, be running newer packages and things like that, I think.
Okay. Yeah, I actually meant to ask you that question offline at some point, but I figured it was a perfect opportunity right now. And to our original point, just Podman run hello world, just like Docker run hello world, and it looked like it just came right out, just exactly what we expected. Awesome.
Yeah, stream done.
Yeah,
I would be very intrigued to start playing with the Podman play stuff. Now that we've kind of shown, and we don't have to go there immediately, but now that we've shown, well, we should do a build and stuff too. And without looking at any docs, JJ, I want you to build an image for us using Podman. And we can continue to type and kind of bullshit while he's doing that, but oh, that hurts.
Wah, wah, wah. You know, so minimal.
I have that happen every time I do a video. Every time I do a video for one of these, like explainer for the Buildah or for the Podman one, I forget that it's a new machine, and so I always have that when I'm recording, and I'm like, shit.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's the funny, the new machine build. So like I said, I just rebuilt my laptop yesterday, and there's always a couple, like, I'm like, all right, ZSH, nope. Git, nope. Vim, nope. And I've got this string now that I just copy of all of like my common shit that I just make sure is like there.
I was about to say, is there a place you could like just get all of them, you know, because there's like Gnome on Windows and there's whatever,
there's a whole subculture, people. This whole subculture
really?
people who do this. Yeah.
Ansible, man. No, there's so many different ways.
Oh, yeah, Ansible, my bad.
That's not the only way.
No, it's fine. Ansible, if I was doing it frequently enough, I would absolutely script it out with Ansible. But every time I do it, it's warrants revisiting what I'm installing and crossing out. So I have a list of things. And just like Brian said, fonts, like on my list yesterday was install these like awesome fonts and a couple of others. And I'm like, do I need this time? And then I start striking through a few things I don't have. The big annoyance now is the Gnome 3 extensions, because Gnome 3 vanilla is largely unusable to me. And I have my series of extensions I need to make it not painful. And trying to remember those is a trick, because I haven't found a good way of kind of scripting that stuff out. But otherwise, you know, Ansible, Chef, there's a billion different ways you can do it. Just do it in a freaking script.
Some of those are like in the Fedora package, like repo, but like I think they're generally a little older, but it's easier to install. And if those are the ones you're using, maybe that'll work.
It could. I usually just install, I mean, my path while JJ's written this Docker file is I'll install Chrome, and then I'll install the Chrome Gnome 3 extensions, and then I'll just start typing them in and activating them. And the problem though is if you get an error on one of them, it is obscure as shit, like, or opaque as shit. Like, you have no insight whatsoever. You click to turn on, it says error. You're like, well,
yeah, what?
Okay. I guess I'm not using that one anymore.
Yeah, I hear you. I've been there before, and then you realize that like that particular one isn't there anymore. So like somebody forked it so that they could commit to it and still to update, and then things work. But it's just finding, it's knowing what you need to know is the problem.
That's it. I took a screenshot before I rebuilt this laptop and literally just went through them. And the one I'm using is like no title bar dash fork. Like it literally, they're just like, we forked it. We have no other way of explaining this. So we're just maintaining it now. And I see JJ's been successful.
Woo.
Yay. So that was surprisingly easy. Like it really was. But granted,
a hell of a selling point for Podman.
Yeah, granted, I am a relatively seasoned using, I mean, obviously I forget commands, but I am relatively seasoned with Docker. But for what I actually walked through to make a simple Alpine build that installs Vim and then actually has Vim for me, that was pretty good. I got to say.
Yeah.
Okay, so so that's the normal interface into it. So can I pull down, in essence, any Docker file? And just run it, right? Like, where are the limitations, or are there any?
None that I know of. I mean, if you, one option is to just start dorking around with things you would normally do in Docker and just see where it fails. But honestly, I believe it's got parity. Parity, son of a bitch. That was the word I was looking for about 15 minutes ago. Parity with the Docker CLI. So everything should just transfer out. Yes, COBOL.
So that those should work. One of the biggest things that I've found with Podman, running versus Docker is, since Docker, no matter what, is running things, in that rootful daemon, the containers have the ability to access root, right? With Podman, you are running your pods as a regular user or whatnot, if you set that up in your Docker file. And because of that, there might be some differences. And the biggest one that I found really is port forward or network things. So think about in Docker, maybe you do like a Docker network create. And you say, oh, hey, this is the network that I'm going to use for this stack of applications or whatever. And then you just basically could do like Docker run -- network and specify which network you just created for all of the things that you're running. With Podman, if you're running Podman in rootful mode, so sudo podman run or run as root, then you can do that. That workflow works fine. But if you're running in a user mode, so if you're running the way that you are, your user's Vagrant on this machine, and you just do podman run, that's rootless. So since you're running in that mode, you can't work with the networking stuff, at least so I've found. Maybe Podman 2.0 or whatever changed some of that stuff. The way around it seemed to be that you need to take a port mapping instead and route your traffic through your local host that you're on or whatnot. So you can still access those things, but you just have to access them a little bit differently than maybe using the network command and stuff like that. At least that's all that I've found is one of the bigger differences.
And that's pretty deep into the Docker ecosystem, that if you were already there, you probably have enough experience. The lion's share of the things seem pretty
yeah. I mean, like if you're that, you could easily do the port mapping, and if you know that, then one of the biggest things would be, well, that port mapping might now be able to be accessed outside of this machine, so maybe you have to set up a firewall rule.
Yeah,
but like that maybe, but that's as far as I've found.
Okay, nice. Okay, so I'm happy with Podman now. What's the next logical step for me here? Like, is it looking at Buildah is the next thing? And where does, we lost Cedric. I don't know where he went. But
generally, yeah, like, well, I guess to answer the thing, generally any container, any OCI compliant container, which Docker containers are OCI compliant, any of those containers will run with Podman.
Nice.
So you shouldn't have any weird, you know, like, oh, hey, I use this thing or whatever. Like those should just work. But be on the lookout, I guess, in rootless mode for that networking thing, at least is what I found. But yeah, I don't know. What do you think,
next
Cedric?
steps? Oh, sorry. I'll let Cedric answer in a second. So I don't know if when you just logged back in, Cedric, but he was saying, all right, Podman, JJ is pretty sold on it. We're trying to figure out where we go from here. I have ideas. I do want to mention Buildah is not necessarily you go Podman to build it. It's not like a progression. It's not like
okay.
Yeah, it's
they're on the same level.
They're on the same level. It's kind of apples and oranges, a very different way to approach things, but you accomplish pretty much the same things. And the fact that you sounded kind of surprised at that is, I'm glad this is kind of how things evolve, because it's not, okay, I've gotten good at Podman, now it's time to learn Buildah. With that, Cedric, you want to talk about what Buildah is then?
Yeah, sorry, my kids were being crazy, so I had to go calm them down. Talk about Buildah, let's go. So Buildah is awesome. Just finished up the video for this the other day. So it's essentially building a container literally from a Docker file, but without having to use, of course, Docker. And it's same thing with Podman. So there's no daemon, and it's perfect for like continuous integration, stuff like that. In the same family, also the logo is a Boston Terrier because it's a Boston project. It's corny. But there's so much inner compatibility with Podman. So have we Star, I was gone for like a couple minutes. Do we build a container?
No,
anything like that yet with Podman?
Yeah, so he's we kind of vamped for a bit while he wrote out a Docker file and built an image and ran it. So we've done the fairly basic Docker crossover stuff of building a container, downloading a container, things like that. We haven't gone down the Podman play route, which I'm curious to play with. It might just be very simple, just take some Kubernetes manifests and run them. But that's something I'd like to do at some point today. But yeah, we've covered the basics of Podman. So now it's like, okay, well, how is Buildah different?
Yeah, where like it feels like Podman is like me interfacing with a container to do development work and or run a container, where Buildah is more for the robots. Is that a good way to describe it?
You could. You could say it's for humans that hate Docker files.
Okay.
Yeah, because you effectively, and I'm so spectacularly new to this, so don't let me sound like I'm coming off like an expert, but you basically create a scratch container of absolutely nothing on it, and then you mount it to your to like a file system, like a directory, and then you put things on it as you would kind of anything else. So you'll run yum commands to install things to it and things like that. So you can make these very, very trimmed down scratch images using bash or shell commands on the mounted image or container. And then once you're happy, you say, cool, I'm going to commit that container to an image, and ta-da, you have an OCI compliant image. So it's can be much more interactive. Yeah, exactly.
You don't need a Docker file. You can have one, but you don't need a Docker file with Buildah.
And that's where this is where I was curious how JJ was going to like it, because it's imagine thinking all the graybeard stuff of dorking around with a shell prompt to configure a system, except you're configuring a container image that way.
So it's in essence, it's faking out a VM that it gets you SSH in, you install a bunch of shit, you say commit, and then it gives you a container of all your stuff.
Almost, you don't even SSH in, you mount it, and then you do the special magic of a DNF
run whatever
install.
Commands.
Yeah. Yep. So you can copy things to that. You can do DNF installs, and there's a way of saying install it to this directory, and you can have a scratch image with literally just bash on it, and because you've installed it using DNF.
Okay, we're gonna play with this here in a second.
So you're like that. Yeah, I totally. This is what I was alluding to earlier.
I generally do like, if you want a tool that will run containers, be able to work with images of containers, build those images, push them, Podman, done, it works. If you need to do maybe a little more advanced things when building those images, Buildah. Buildah also, I think, automated. You could automate, do things like that with Podman too, I think. But I think Buildah is the tool for that. At least that's how I see it, I think.
I think that's fair. I see a lot of the selling point behind it is integrating it into scripting systems.
Just an FYI, that build did finish using Podman just to prove again that we did the whole thing from the ground up, and it looks like it built successfully. So I'm genuinely impressed. So that's cool. All right, installing Buildah.
Yeah, now this is going to be a little more interesting. This takes a little more effort to do correctly, I believe.
Is that DNF?
I don't know which spot you're on.
either.
Oh, Vagrant. Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure even in 32, Yum still works. I think it might even just be an alias to DNF. Which is very topical given this whole Podman and Docker discussion.
But yeah, I'm just surprised. I'm surprised you're surprised it works, man. Podman's at version 2.0. That's way farther than most things that we work with.
That is a dinosaur by our technology standpoint.
Seriously.
All right, Cedric, I typed Buildah. What do I do next?
Buildah from CentOS and get yourself a just a CentOS image. Now we can work with it.
Like this?
Mm-hmm.
Be careful
So
about
that's literally
terminology
using
here.
a Docker file.
It's
command,
not giving us an image. It's giving us they call it a scratch container. So it's not an image in the sense of you would think it's an image you can push up to Docker Hub or Quay right now. And that's very specific.
True.
Working container is the term they use. So that name, CentOS-working container, is how we would refer to it.
You need to do you need to do the final step before it's a image or whatever.
Yes,
right?
exactly.
Yeah.
Until you commit it, it's not an image, which becomes very wonky. And I think I pointed out because for years now, I've been trying to correct people when they interchangeably use the terms container and image, or when they incorrectly use them, like oh, I deployed an image. No, you deployed a container based off of an image, or I push my container up to Docker. No, you push the image. Here, it's a little in reverse, that what we just did was build a quote unquote working container that we don't have an image of yet. So it's this kind of backwards approach to how we typically do things.
My bad. That is right.
So I have a from container. So now I pulled it down, but I'm not in it right now, correct?
Yeah, type in Buildah images. I think that's the command. I can't remember.
That's Docker images.
Well, you started from CentOS, so CentOS latest is there.
Okay.
So it's chilling. And now we can really mess with it. So
I'm sorry, before you do that, do Buildah containers.
Yeah, and that'll give you the name for the working container that we can use.
And
there we go. And so you see the container name.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So let's decide, what do we want to do with this? Do we want to install something on it? Because we can type in whatever kind of commands we want to put into it.
Install Nginx.
So I think it'd be fun to
Nginx. Yeah, you said you wanted to make a website.
Yeah, Nginx. Let's just install Nginx. Let's start there.
All right.
I'm glad that worked out the way it did, because I just unmuted to yell at Cedric and be like, "Don't leave that open to JJ. He's gonna have us installing COBOL."
No, we already did the COBOL one for this stream. We're good.
There you go. I've done my PR and I've compiled COBOL already. I'm good.
Now we can stick on topic.
Yeah. That's good.
Oh god. All right. So to run a command, so it's Buildah run, right? And then give it the container name after that. So CentOS working container, the full thing.
There's my tab complete. Cedric,
no, it's not there, right?
go get my tab complete.
Probably possible.
Probably is possible.
I blame you, Cedric.
The intern, it makes sense. But now you can, whatever command you want, it'll execute in the Scratch container.
Nginx. Oh. DNF is not.
Is it yum?
I guess.
Might be yum. Thanks.
No, there we go.
Yep, sweet. DNF, I hardly know her.
Oh. No Nginx pack. What?
Gotta remember this is CentOS. They might be in like some kind of extended thing.
Oh,
or...
god damn it.
Oh yeah. You need RPM Fusion or
Fuck
release.
it. We're installing Vim.
You need all those things.
Not gonna play that game today.
And
The
then,
real fun will be getting Vim to serve our website.
We could do Apache.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah.
HTTPD.
There you go. Good call. Intern with a save.
Go to.
There you go.
That was a good save.
Yeah. All right. We got those two.
Okay. Let's put in a HTML file. Either we can make one in Vim, or we can do just like a echo command and then type out some text into a index.html file. Like, which one do you want to do?
Oh wow. So we can't get actually into the container to like create the thingy. I have to have it somewhere already and then copy it in.
Well, that's the lazy approach to do it. It's up to you.
Isn't it just like body?
Yeah,
Shows how much I actually do this shit.
I was just the reason I haven't chimed in earlier is because I don't ever
feel like I'm back in high school.
Yeah, no, Jesus Christ.
Feel like I'm in high school again, and they're teaching us to code.
People.
The only thing high school about this for me is Vim. Actually, no, Vim might not even been around in high school.
There you go.
That wasn't really a thing.
I feel like Vim was probably around, but maybe not taught.
Probably right. I mean, I feel like freshman year in college, I had us using Nano on the whatever version of Unix systems we were using there.
Yeah, that could have been ED, like you were just working with ED.
Yeah.
Yeah, so instead of run, we'll use the command copy.
Copy.
I think you're already doing that. And then so you'll copy the index. You saved it as index.html, right?
Yeah.
Okay. And then var www html,
right.
and then index.html.
It's been a while since I've done this. All right.
Isn't it funny the basics like that when they slide? Like, it makes me almost worry if I ever have to do an interview again.
Yeah.
Because like I could talk about my experience and my personality and my energy and stuff like that, and then they would ask me the most basic ass question. I'd be like, "What's an HTML file again?"
Yeah. Like I don't think I don't think that's a valid HTML file. Actually, hang on. Let's find out.
I think so.
It'll probably render, but there's probably a whole bunch of validations that is failing.
Yeah.
You might have forgot the doc type HTML thing. That goes at the head.
I'm just genuinely curious.
I mean, I think that'll open and display fine in any modern browser, but like, is it legit? Like
3 errors.
Valid? Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
You're missing a doc type.
The doc
You're
type,
missing a title for that, or the head element. Oh yeah, and which language are you talking? That's important.
Yeah. Oh well. Okay, so we got that in there. What next?
So now theoretically, you could do any action that you want to do after this, like build it, commit it, and then once you run it, it would start going. But
well, do we need to, because we installed HTTPD on there? Don't we need to tell the container to have HTTPD or Apache 2 running? No, HTTPD running.
Yeah, like configure an entry point.
Yeah. What would you do there?
Okay. So that's the build a config command. It's a whole bunch. Okay. Give it 2 dashes, and then you're going to configure an entry point. So no space though. Entry point.
Okay.
It's now in parentheses, and this is what's really going to do it. You're going to type in the location where it's going to start. I don't know the right terminology. I apologize. So it's user usr /s bin and then httpd.
Oh, so this is so instead of using sysctl, we're telling this specifically to start the HTTP daemon for us. Correct? Like that?
Yeah. Oh, but yeah. Oh, well, let's also have it running in the foreground. So you'll give it a tag -d.
-d.
And then foreground.
That?
You forgot the E.
And then in those parentheses. Wait. Yeah. FORE. Yeah. It's like when you look at a word too much and it starts becoming meaningless. And then give it the name of the working container, and then you're good to go. So give it a space and then that CentOS container.
Where's my tab complete, intern? I was expecting my tab complete by the time I got here.
Should use fish.
No. No. God. Damn it, Brian.
That was talking about that whole ricing thing. A couple of years ago, I was on Fish because I had a bunch of cool shit, and then I tried to copy and paste any script in there, and they're like, "Yeah, we're too cool for this. Like, setting variables is different." I'm like, "Piss off! I can't be bothered with that."
Yep.
Give me my export command back.
Yep. Yeah, exactly. All right, like this. Okay.
Yeah, you got it. Wonderful. All right. And so just before you do that, you have to commit it.
I'm assuming commit.
Yep. So just the name of the working container, and then whatever you want to call it. CentOS working container.
Oh yeah, my beeping didn't actually come through. I was trying to tab complete there.
I'm trying to look it up for you, but I'm surprisingly not seeing anything on it.
Container.
And then what name do we want to give it?
Cedric failed my bash.
Failed bash.
Complete.
Autocomplete.
Honestly, I kind of love this because yes, it's very funny to play on Cedric, but since there's no tab completion, you got to type that shit in every time.
Yeah.
With typo.
On stream.
Oh, there we go.
I see you're typing things incorrectly. Do you need help?
So I got to admit that the UX of me writing commands using Buildah. So hold on, we did history grep Buildah.
History spell rule.
Fucking hell.
Histroy.
Maybe you need to switch keyboards. This is a sign.
Okay, so just let's talk about this like UX real quick, just for a second, right? Where I gotta admit, this felt a little weird. Telling it to build a command to run something for me, to copy something in, and then configure. Like in essence, we wrote a Docker file just line by line, right?
Without a Docker file. That's why I was saying it's kind of parallel and not necessarily an upgrade or a progression, because no one's really going to argue this is better. It's different.
I'm just trying to.
If you have a Go, like, so for example, say you're developing in Go, right? And you build out your tool that you're working on, right? Mm-hmm. Like, how would you get that into a container image or a container? How would you get that in there? You would have to make a Docker file and then copy the file. You start from scratch, copy the file over. So you got to type some stuff and make this file, or copy one from somewhere else. Okay. This lets you just basically say, oh, Buildah from scratch, enter, Buildah copy, local one file, enter, Buildah you know, it's a little bitty. Like I think it's easier in that example.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, but we went from CentOS here, right?
Yeah.
So
Oh, yeah.
we already had a tool chain built inside of this. Is this any image on the litany of hubs now we have? Can this be like Alpine or whatever? Like, is it okay? Okay. I guess.
Yep. And it's good that you mentioned the line by line thing, because later on in the stream, we're actually going to do this bug command, which literally just takes a Docker file and does it all for you. So like it has that compatibility and flexibility to do both. Okay, you know, get you one that does both.
All right. So because I built it and it committed, right? It did the thing, storing signatures. Okay, so
yeah. So let's check Buildah images. See what it's doing.
Images. There we go.
And there we go. Cedric failed my bash completion on stream.
Podman. Here's the trick. Exactly. You're going to use Podman run for it, not Buildah run.
Yeah. -it.
And that confused me before. It really did.
So the reason why it gives you that is because these containers or these images are put into a particular path on your system whenever you're using Buildah, the standard path. It's like .local/containers, I think, if you look. Podman also uses the same, you know, area to look for. So it's using the same thing.
Okay, well, I'm going to trust that
80,
this works.
80, I think.
I don't think it's going to work because I'm on a VM with four.
Oh.
This is one of those times that I wish I just had a. Yeah, it's fine. Could not open configuration file. Did we do something?
Is there not laid down by default when you install HTTPD?
I believe so. I've not got that error before.
See, here's the thing. I was going to say do a run bash into it, but it's not going to have bash on it either.
No, it's CentOS. It does.
Oh, okay. Oh, okay. Yeah, I'm thinking of the scratch container.
Yeah. We no.
What?
Hang on.
How?
Could not have, like, so the whole point of the bin bash is to take away the entry point, right?
Yeah, I think we might have an ordering issue here, but I can't figure out where it lies. Like it's ignoring the bin bash for some reason. I can't figure out why. Because that looks right. Maybe no, the IT has to go after the run.
Oh, we got 2 people in the chat. Try capital D. Oh, okay. All right. So looks like.
Well, that'd be a capital D on the command. Yeah, that.
Oh. If I do
my
that,
bad.
does it overwrite it?
That's a great question. I like to think it's smart enough to. Yeah, I'm sure we're gonna have to recommit. I like to think it's smart enough to know there's only one entry point and overwrite it. But now's a good time to figure out what build a config view, if that's going to show us that, or how we actually see these things.
Build a config view. You got to still.
No, you were right the first time, but you have to put in the name of the container. The CentOS container, CentOS-working-container. So to this question in chat, reading the Podman website, I'm not sure if you just logged in, and I have no problem. Wait, is he still there? Oh,
yeah. Someone give a rundown of what Podman is.
So so JJ records this. He's going to make it available. You can go back and watch the first hour. We played a lot with Podman. Not that I'm not going to answer you right now. It is a container runtime and building API compatible with Docker. So anything you can do with Docker, you can do with Podman. And again, if you weren't here earlier, we actually just kind of said to JJ, go install Podman. And he was doing stuff where we were bullshitting about pointless stuff. And he didn't go back to the site once, which was actually really cool. When you, in this stream, I feel like we tend to look up the docs and things from time to time. He knew how to run, build containers, and so on and so forth. Biggest difference that I usually mention is that it's daemonless. So whereas Docker to run something, or more annoyingly, I told you, man, it's been a long week. More annoyingly, even build an image, you need the daemon running. I almost said Rocker again. You need the daemon running. Podman does not require that. So he just installed Podman, didn't do anything with the daemon, and was able to build and run container. So container runtime replacement for Docker, daemonless, rootless, open. Well, I don't know if Docker is necessarily open source, but friendlier. I don't know if I should even say that way, but that is essentially what Podman is in a nutshell. And I don't know if my chat list of users in chat is refreshing or if you logged out, but if you have any more questions, by all means, feel free to post them. Okay, do we get this? I wasn't paying attention though. Do we get the view?
No, I couldn't see get the command.
Did you type in buildah config view and then CentOS -working -container?
Yep. Too many arguments specified.
Yet if you don't specify one, okay, cool.
Here
we go.
Looks like we got
View thinks it's setting a value called view, I think.
Is it buildah inspect? What does that do?
Well, we got a couple follow-ups, Jay, if you want to answer those.
I'll answer those. You dork around with buildah inspect. Okay. Eager learn my containers, setting for cert in K8s and Docker. Awesome. A daemonless container. Okay, yeah, let me explain that. So we have a buildah -explode -explode. Okay, so when I say, just to be clear here, daemonless containers, not exactly the right way of phrasing it. You might have your head wrapped around it, you're just saying it a bit off. Docker itself, Docker, the tool, when you run it, it runs a Docker daemon in the background. And when you try to run something, a container, just like a Docker run, whatever, it connects to that daemon, and that's what it uses to run it. And there's technology there that I don't fully understand, that I'm just kind of glossing over. When I say daemonless, you don't have a Podman daemon running. So you never run into an issue where you're like, Podman run, and you get that error message back that says, the Podman daemon's not running, I'm not going to do anything. There's an old Java runtime and an old IAM.
While Jay's reading that, just make sure everyone sees this. It looks like that update did actually change the working to that. So I'll do another commit.
Question before you take this down, and this is, I don't know if this is for everyone on the chat end here. Why is entry point done as a list of different items instead of a single string with spaces in it? I just hit this the other day, and I always do it this way, like command and entry point, but I don't think I've ever understood why that's the convention in Docker files. Does anybody actually know the reason? So entry point right now is sh, and then a second in the list is -c, and then the thing after that. And I imagine there's no spaces in there. Like, why isn't it a single line that says bin sh -c, and then the rest of the argument to it? Why is it separated into multiple? And I feel like if I was writing this myself, I would have split the last item into 3 different entries in the list. But I've never understood why that's the convention. I just do it.
Chris says it's probably JSON, a JSON conversion, maybe.
I mean, whenever you type stuff into like your command prompt, like your shell, whatever you're using, you know, think about how you parse command line arguments in Python, for example, you know, because I know Jay, you do Python. So you parse command lines or arguments there. The first command line argument is going to be what? Like Python or your file name, right? So I think that like that's somewhat related, but I don't know exactly why. I think the shell probably takes your thing and parses it into that list.
It might
and
be.
this is a little more raw, is how
You
I
can
think.
probably escape quotes. Like, I mean, I know you're going to have necessarily quotes in here. Like, in fact, this command is probably sh-c.
Oh yeah,
The
it
rest
could
of it in
be
quotes, so that way you
valid
chunk
JSON.
it up without having to escape them.
Yeah, that could be it. It could be quotes. Although, but if it's a string, I don't know. You could still, delineate or delineate or escape them or whatever this would mean. Yeah.
And it'd be
Yeah,
impossible to read.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we've seen impossible. I mean, that's not the first time.
Trade off. Which one do you want? Easier to read or?
Anyway, I didn't mean to subvert it, but I figured I've always done it this way. That's how I've seen it, and I'm like, cool. And a couple days ago, I was writing it. I'm like, this is really annoying because I had like 5 or 6 different arguments, and I'm like, this sucks. Like quote, comma, space, quote, comma, space, space.
Do it for you, Cedric. Do it for you.
Thank you. And shout out XY Plista for the correction. That was my bad.
We need a web service that takes in a string of commands that parses that out and breaks it into a list. Like, that's all it does.
Oh, that's good.
To the question in chat, is Vagrant worth it to learn? Yeah, because it's simple enough to do what you need to do. You don't have to learn it to a crazy extent to get the basics for what it is you're kind of describing. It's fairly simple to take an existing Vagrant file and modify as necessary. It's not, you can just put shell commands in, so it's not like you're learning a whole language like Ansible and you're like, holy crap, I've got to pick up all of this kind of construct. It's largely, if you know the commands you're going to run, the Vagrant file that we had up earlier, you take the structure of that, you type in your own shell commands. So for the extent, like what Chris Jordan is saying, use a basic template, fill in the peach you needed. And it's one of those things that you learn to the extent that you can use it, but you haven't spent a ton of time dorking with it until you need to. So I would definitely say it's not like a dead technology. And the way you're describing it, sometimes you need to run VMs. I mean, that's going to be the easiest way of doing it, one of the easier ways of doing it. Virtual server farms, depending on what you mean by that term, if you're talking about in your house, you've got some hardware lying around that you're turning into spawning a couple of VMs. If this is anything production level, and you're doing it on a large scale, you're looking at
I think I know it.
OpenStack or something like that, where obviously significantly heavier weight, but that's like the gold standard professional hardcore way of spinning up VMs very quickly. Sorry, Cedric, I cut you off there.
No. Oh, you're good. You're good. I just want to say, JJ, if there's any more problems, my man XY Plista is right. The foreground, I think, is supposed to be capital. I can't remember. Oh.
Yeah, it looks like it's running. It looks like it's running now.
Do you have any way to access it by chance?
Open that browser.
No. Damn.
Just do a curl from the host machine, no?
Well, okay, so I can never get this right. Is this is the first one first one that contain the
since
VM?
You're running it in, hold on, but you're running it on Vagrant, right? So this is a port into the Vagrant VM.
Yeah.
So you need to figure out what that IP address is.
Yeah.
And then you could access it. So you should be able to access it. You just need to figure out what that IP is.
Damn it.
You are like physically closer to my desktop machine than you are where that process is running, given that you SSH into a box, that then a Vagrant VM on that box, and then a container running inside of that. Like, we've kind of built a monster here. We really did. This is not good. This is not good.
Okay, so port 80 on localhost, right? No, guest of 80. So if we get our container to do port 80 on the guest.
Yeah.
Wait, I'm confused though. Why did we have Podman do 8080 to 80?
So,
we should be able to just do Podman 80
Podman
to
port
80 itself, because that's going to expose the Vagrant port 80 into the containers port 80, which is Apache. And
But I need to be
Cedric
real.
just had a stroke.
Yeah, to do
Well, we
that,
need
you
to
have to be
be
right,
Wow.
because it's
Yeah.
a lower port.
Yeah, it's port 8.
You could do the 80443 or 8443. I saw you had that open. That would work.
Hang on. Did I do that already?
Yeah.
Oh, there we go. Okay. Yeah.
8043.
Okay. All right. Jesus Christ.
It's so confusing.
Yeah, so Cedric, that 8043 is saying I can go into the host machine at 8043. It's going to forward it to 8043 on the Vagrant box. And then we're about to take the containers 80 and wire that up to 8043 on the Vagrant box, which we've established we can get to. And, a few thousand network overlay hops later, we've accessed Hello World.
That port mapping that you just
did. Damn it.
That port mapping you just did should be P space 8043, and then it should be 80.
Oh, it should be 80?
Or yeah, 80 on the back half, because that's the
containers 80. HTTP's 80.
No.
Nope.
The heck.
So localhost, that browser is on the same machine as the Vagrant host.
Correct.
Okay.
So that's I guess I thought ahead, trying to tell 8043 in case I had a weird.
Do we have them
thing with
backwards?
that. It's possible. Oops.
Yeah, it definitely could be.
I never get it right, and I have like a cheat sheet somewhere.
So like this, I think that's the one we haven't tried, right?
Yeah. Although it should have raised an error if the container doesn't expose.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, so this is exposed it saying we did have it right the first time.
Yay!
Ah!
Why did that not work? What the heck? Whatever, awesome.
It took us an hour and a half, but we got hello people to show up.
I'm more impressed with the sheer amount of redirection going on here. Like that is some Inception level shit just to say hello, people. No, so someone's joking in chat, how many engineers to install Nginx? It's funny because we tried Nginx and punched out of that real quick because it's not easily installable on CentOS. So this is Apache.
Oh god. Oh my goodness. Okay.
I need a quick break on that one because I need to grab some water. So you guys can either continue or we can all celebrate hello, people.
We actually have a quiz now, believe it or not. I'm gonna kick it over to the quiz. That'll stick up for a little bit, and we'll take a 5-minute break. It's probably a good idea anyway. With that right there, if you want to do Q bang in the chat, it'll start asking you some quizzes, and we'll be back in just a couple minutes.
Awesome.
Nice.
Woo! Now we're live. There we go. Sorry about everyone about the quiz. As you can see, the quiz was working inside of the chat, but it seems that my OBS, as you probably saw, decided to not refresh, which caused some problems, needless to say. But it is a work in progress, and thank you again to Grace and for making that stuff happen for us. This was it's really cool. So, gentlemen, we have successfully gotten Buildah working. We've successfully got Podman working, which, by the way, I might even install Podman on my Mac to talk to my Docker instance now, because I'm so happy about using it. Just saying. And we got a container working with Buildah through Vagrant in old school DevOpsy ways to show us a file.
And real quick for Cedric's kind of experience level, like this, 3 experienced engineers dorking around with tech just to get back to a simple hello world will happen many times in your career. And every time you're just like, I'm the smartest man alive for getting this stupid hello world working. But there's a lot of learning new stuff distilled down to exactly this.
It's true. And if you don't do it every day, you will forget it.
Yep.
As proven by us forgetting this.
That's right. We wrote some HTML. Let's not forget that.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, you're right. Yes.
Coding.
So I should put that on my LinkedIn profile. I'm a web developer, can write some HTML.
Full stack.
Yes, it's true. I am a full stack developer now.
I mean, you created it, deployed it.
Yep, that's right. That's right. Oh my God. Okay. All right. So we've got Podman down. We got Buildah down, which I'm not. I see the beauty of it, but at the same time, I'm not 100% sold, because I still feel like I'm down the Podman path instead of the Buildah path. But that's a different conversation. What is the next step?
So I'm going to kick in. I think we've got a couple directions. There's Buildah building from a Docker file, which is going to be dirt simple. So maybe we just knock that one out real quick. Let Cedric kind of drive what the interface looks like there. And then there's Podman play, which we talked about, about an hour ago now, which I had just learned about, which apparently will take Kubernetes manifests and deploy them. So maybe we do the build from Docker file first. Oh, and then we have been talking on the break about Skopeo, which is usually mentioned in the same conversation as Podman and Buildah. And I know it has something to do with working with the registries images are stored in, and that's the extent of my knowledge there. So if we have time, we could spin into learning some completely brand new stuff. I don't know if Brian's got experience or not.
Brian, that was your cue to say that yes or no.
Yeah, no. A little bit. But yeah, let's go on. I think that sounds good.
All right. Well.
All right. So.
Yep.
So the whole building with Dockerfile thing. So it's called BUD. It was just the acronym, build using Dockerfile. And so essentially just takes in any kind of Docker file that you want and produces an image just like that. So if you want to do it the old school way.
Should it be not Bud, but
Buildah.
But
no, Docker file is one word.
Oh, you're right. That is true. That is true. All right.
I had no idea what you're saying.
I don't know what that says about me that I got that completely.
Buildah Bud.
Buildah BUD?
Yeah, will it give you the help for it or no?
Whoa.
No, okay. Well, let's just go ahead and vim a Docker file, and let's put in like a from and like a run.
You mean like from Alpine and a run command?
Exactly.
So
you have that just chilling?
No, when you were gone, this is the one I wrote. This is the one I wrote.
Yeah, during that brief 2 minutes that you blipped out, he and Brian and I were kind of bullshitting, and he read a Docker file.
Oh, I thought it was just always there.
I'm not that big of a dork. Come on, man.
And so
Like
here's the
this?
cool thing is, yeah, here, I'll show you real quick. So if you want, you can automatically default to using the Docker file as the input name. And so you already have it as Docker file, which is great. And so you'll do just -t and then the name of what you want to call it. But if your Docker file is called something else, like cool Docker file, then you can actually use the -f command and signify what the Docker file is. So that's a cool little tip.
That is cool. So wait, hold on. Does that mean we could have Docker files for different architectures for applications? So then we could use Buildah to talk to like QEMU to emulate an ARM processor or whatever to be able to build the container that way?
I wouldn't have gone that far, but maybe. I mean, I've seen Docker files for, holy shit, I can't remember the example now. I've done it for demo purposes where I've had dockerfile.user and dockerfile.root to demonstrate the differences between explicitly setting and not, and then you just specify the Docker file you want. I'm working on a demo right now where I've got V1, V2 versions of a service. So it's basically the same code, hand in a variable, and it's going to do something correct. But you can absolutely have multiple Docker files. You just have to explicitly say them.
Cool.
And remove the, And so, literally just that.
So I think you can, though. I think you could do that. You do like, I was just looking, do Buildah manifest. And on there, you could do like create -h and just see like the output. And in there, it gives you some details like, oh, hey, this is the specific architecture. So like you could interact with the manifest to do that. I haven't done it, but it looks like you can. So like if you build, going back on the, I'm making a Go application that's one file or what, it would work with CentOS or whatever too, but, or it should, I think, but you could, specifically just say like, hey, this is an AARCH64 image or whatever. It'll work on a Raspberry Pi 4, for example.
Nice.
And you can cross build that way, and then add that. I'm pretty sure that's possible.
Nice. That's really cool. Like that opens up a huge opportunities for a lot of things. Granted, I would never do any of them, but I could, my friends that have to compile software for multiple architectures, that would be very, very interesting for them.
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, every now and then, so I have a shout out to Pine64. I have a Pine64 Pine book, which is a ARM 64 architecture laptop, $200. It's a nice laptop. It's got a decent screen. Yeah, it's good, but it's ARM based, right? So like builds and stuff like that need to be the right architecture for them to run.
Nice.
Hey, we've hit our quota for Brian mentioning some cool side project that he's got going on. We've got that going too. I love hearing about the random shit he brings up. It's awesome every time.
Standard laptop, right? I mean, it looks nice. Keyboard's nice. The trackpad, but whatever. It's a nice 1080p screen, and the battery life lasts forever.
Something like $200.
Yeah, plus a little delay in shipping, but that's
fine.
expected.
Yeah, like, I mean, I could imagine being stuck on a plane with something you can actually watch a good movie on, and like it's an actual laptop, so you could, in theory, get on the Wi-Fi and actually like get a Google Docs or whatever to do some work if you need to.
Yep. The only, probably the biggest limit, think like the way that I think of like the performance is it's a little bit better than a Raspberry Pi 4. So stuff feels fast enough, like simple browsing, but like if you're the like 100 tab person or whatever, no way, not gonna happen. Like 5 tabs at max maybe, but you can actually get real work done on it. Yeah, there you go. Yeah. Perfect.
Yeah, no, I don't get the 100 tab person. I don't.
Me neither. I'm not that person either. That's why, yeah.
It makes me uncomfortable when people screen share and they've got that much going on.
Yeah. Like, how do you keep track of any of it?
What does the inside of your head sound like?
I know, God.
Seriously.
Well, just to tie a bow on Buildah, because I think we got there. We ran it, created I'm pointing my screen with a pen, realizing y'all can't actually see me when I'm pointing. So take a step back. We ran it and it built it for us. I found the image. Can you push? Interesting. Can you push Buildah to specific repositories like automatically? Is there a push system to it?
It might just be like how we use Podman to run it. You might just fall back to Podman to do the push as well.
Okay,
Two
because it is.
So yeah, Podman could push to that. So you build it in Buildah, and that builds the image. You could also use Podman to build. That's cool. But you could then use Podman to push if you're on a workstation. Skopeo is another way to push to the image repository. So Buildah is strictly building containers.
Got it.
Podman is like the general all-purpose on a workstation, and Skopeo can move from my workstation to an image repository, or from an image repository to an image repository. So like stream it through, I guess. But that could work. There's a couple different ways, but that's Skopeo.
Okay, so we'll get there in a second. But I just wanted to reiterate that the reason why I brought this up was because it says localhost, right? And that felt, when I used Buildah to do it, it felt a little weird to say that this was my localhost registry, implying that there were other hosts to do this. So, or registries to do this. If that makes sense. Do we have to spin up Quay now on my local machine? No, I'm kidding.
Use Quay.io.
Yeah, Quay.io.
We will in a minute. We will. Okay. So Cedric, what's next?
So we did the bud, right?
Yep.
This is like the extent to where I've gone. Crap. I guess Skopeo?
Okay.
Skopeo or the Podman from Kubernetes YAML.
Let's try that. Let's do the Podman play.
Also that.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So Podman play. What should I do?
That's a great question, because neither Cedric nor I had played with this before.
So the first
have at it, Brian.
The first step is you're gonna need a Kubernetes definition. So it needs to be either a pod or a deployment, it looks like. To probably pull up that site or that thing that I linked a while ago and make sure that if we're doing a deployment, then we have the right version and all that stuff.
So it would be this guy.
Podman play kube. Yeah.
And
look, and there's a nice example that we could take and replace the image and use Cedric's image that we just built.
Wonderful.
Possibly, yeah.
All right, so grab all this, copy.
What is Replicas 3 going to do? Start up 3 containers?
I guess.
Yeah, I don't.
Yeah.
One of the ways that I think is kind of neat to generate like this basic thing instead of like Googling that is if you're working in the command line already, you could do this yourself with, I'm pretty sure kubectl will do it. OC definitely will. You just add, you could do like OC space, create space, deployment space, give it the image and the stuff you would give a deployment, and then you do -- dry run. And that will output this as you see it pretty much, I would bet. So that you don't have to do the whole Google, figure out what's a boilerplate deployment.
Which is funny, because this is why I feel like I would fail a whole bunch of tests about Kubernetes, because I would always do something like that or copy and paste. And it's been a while since I've legitimately looked at the actual structure of the YAML, like knowing where metadata and spec, like I could probably figure it out, but like to get to that image part, it would take me a lot of thought to remember spec, template, spec, containers, list, image, whereas I know how to go and edit it, but like hand jamming those, like that sucks.
Yeah, exactly. You know that, hey, you need to go into the spec, containers, image, or whatever, but like, where the heck does that go in relation to all of that? Like, I don't have that memorized either. Definitely not. And I never could remember. I couldn't make this myself, writing it by scratch. I'd be maybe close, but I don't even know about that.
Good. That makes me feel way better, because I'm always like, God, am I just so failing at all of this stuff that.
And talking to a couple other people, I think that they do similar too. So they either have maybe like a set of templates somewhere that like, this is the base stuff that I'm going to work on. One, that works. That's nice. Or they Google it, which probably the slowest. It works, but they Google it, which I've done way too many times. And then the third one would be the dry run works pretty nice. So figuring out how that works. And that way you don't have to like maintain the templates.
And then you check in that little baby project you worked on into Git, and then you reference that every time you go to do it again, and you never really grok the information. But you know, it's why there's the running joke about Kube at all the KubeCons and everything like that, that we're YAML developers.
Oh yeah, I need that t-shirt.
Yeah, it's so true too.
Okay, so we have a deployment. We're using the right image, right? So copy this, do Podman play kube. Is it gonna work?
We spin up a whole Kubernetes cluster on my laptop.
I don't think that Podman can run operators in the way that they run on Kubernetes, but maybe you could figure something out. I don't know.
No, not going to do that.
Up 17 seconds. That's not right.
I mean, they keep saying that operators are just pods, right?
I mean, there's the kube. The watches into the kube API would fail.
The kube API is what's missing here.
And then the custom resource definitions.
But could an operator be made to talk to or to understand, hey, now that Podman has an API, I'm running on Pod. I think that maybe the operator SDK could maybe do that.
I mean, at one point, does it stop becoming an operator if you've changed? If you've taken the kube out of the equation. At that point, it's an application that talks to Podman.
It's kind of neat. Yeah, exactly. Well, seriously, though, but that application has 4 replicas on your own single machine.
So now how does Podman distribute? Like, so we have replicas, but like, what does that actually mean?
Yeah, we have no services in front of this thing.
So yeah, this doesn't have any of the control points or the things that are like actually understanding state, as far as I know. So like, you're not gonna have like with the Docker Compose file, you could get a similar type of thing, right? So you're hey, let's initiate, done. You could put like a restart always or something in there. You could also have like a restart policy, I think maybe in this, with maybe figure out how to do that. But with this, like it's still just gonna hey, launch that stuff. If something dies, well, there's not a kubelet there to check and restart. But it's still giving you what you would get with Docker Compose, stuff that you might need to get the stuff working locally, I guess.
Can't actually access it though.
So yeah, what's going on? I guess that's the question. So what?
Yeah, I can't actually get to it. Is there like a Podman logs or something?
Well, there's no get to it. What are you trying to do?
Oh, there's no port. Yeah, so there's no port maps. Yeah.
Oh yeah, there is. I did. Container port right here.
So it
that
didn't
exposed the container port, but it didn't map. Wait, so okay.
I need
the container port should be 80.
Yeah, container port's 80, isn't it?
And then we need the mapping from 80 to 8043 somewhere. Target port?
I think that's right. That sounds right.
This again goes back to me just being like,
Yeah,
I have examples someplace that worked.
That's like a node port way or whatever.
Yeah, those always get wonky.
But it's different though, because it's running in Podman.
Is there like a down command?
That's a good question too. Like, how do you
Oh,
undo apply?
No, thought it might work.
There's stop, but you don't stop playing. So it's just Podman stop.
Yeah, stop would be like an individual pod, right? So not the whole entire manifest.
There's a dash,
well,
dash
not manifest,
all.
but yeah.
I mean, that's the spectacularly bad way of doing it.
Kill everything.
Yeah.
I always feel like, you know, like I'm a little angry when I type podman rm-af. So for anybody that deletes everything, any pod that's running, all of them forcefully.
Shit, there really isn't. There isn't a stop command.
Not in the sense that we think of it, no.
This seems really weird.
So yeah, there's a way to, I guess, initialize and start. But I guess to stop it, you would stop each thing.
Dash, dash all. And they're not going to restart again since there's no deployment, actual object in place that's going to keep them, or no actual replica set.
Seems like a gap.
It does, but again, I mean, this stuff kind of fascinates me because, like, oh, Podman pod list, really?
Oh, hey, actually, well,
oh, there's a Podman pod command. Okay, Podman pod RM.
There might be a way to do it with labels because you have a label that you've defined as app is Nginx or something, or app is HTTPD or whatnot, I think. So I don't know how, but there might be a way.
I'm not seeing in the Podman stop -L refers to latest. It doesn't have any kind of labeling construct here. Does it actually even keep those anywhere?
There's some way to do it. So like there's a way to do annotations, and I mean you could do podman inspect and inspect the pod that's running, and you could see if there's any labels that got passed through. But you could do annotations. So I've done annotations with the Podman has a feature called auto update, and basically you could just run the command podman auto update, and it'll take all of the pods that are running, and it'll update those images if there are new images in their repository. And to activate that, you basically need to annotate the pod that's running with podman auto update. There's this particular key value that you have to do.
Nice. Y'all see this, right? I'm not crazy. Try to start it. Hey, it's already there. Try to delete it. Hey, it's not there.
So do podman pod list, and then there's like an RM command in there that we're probably gonna have to do. So it still has this outside resource construct of a pod, because what we did was you killed the containers, but it is still tracking these podman concepts, these pod concepts. I think you do a -- all. It's weird. It's like this little like half complete implementation of the Kubernetes resources.
Yeah, it is. That's a good way to describe it.
Let's take a step back for a second. Like, what's the, I said earlier about like the possibility of like a on-ramping to kube, but like, is there any other reason why this is useful? Like, I mean, I guess as a competitor, Docker Compose a bit, maybe it's just the beginnings of it, but like, I don't know, it just doesn't feel really fleshed out if there's no stop or anything.
I can see it as a sanity check, right? A sanity check for some deployments of a pipeline, right? Where you could put it in your CI, give you CI, your CI pipeline, and like a disposable VM or something to have it all spin up and see that your actual app shows up in like a QA environment or whatever. But you're right. Like it just doesn't feel fleshed out is the right word. It feels lacking.
Like what's lacking? I guess so. The question, I guess, let's see, what's lacking from what you're used to this, right? The one is you could deploy everything all together. That's nice. You could do that, right? And I think that's okay. You can't stop everything together, but you could stop them independently.
I mean, it's
right.
Yeah, simply said though, if you just take a look at like Docker compose, like to Jay's point, this feels like a more closer to Kubernetes Docker compose because you're using deployments. But one of the advantages of Docker compose is that you can just do Docker compose up and Docker compose down, and it just does the thing.
It stops all the services that are related to that thing. So that might be something that is something that's missing. I wonder if that functionality exists with the Podman compose project, which it probably does.
For instance, like perfect right here, right? Like Docker compose up in the background, you run a bunch of tests, you have a test suite, and then you do Docker compose down. Like this right here, if you had that Docker compose down also, then all of a sudden you're using Podman instead of Docker compose to spin up the actual deployment YAMLs that you would have for your application in a much more robust manner, right? Does that make sense?
Right.
And I love how they don't actually have a demo compose file here because that would just be helpful. Oh, here we go.
No. Keep us from ever having a hand jam our own.
Yeah, exactly. So Podman, yes. Looks like everything's up. So I should be able to come over here and refresh. Nope.
Yeah, I don't feel something's still weird about the port mapping.
Yeah, it's fine. Well, we at least proved that it worked. Oh, actually, hold on. Curl. Curl. We have curl on here. So curl localhost 8043. No. That was worth a shot. Okay. No worries. All right. So I think I'm pretty happy with where Buildah is and Podman is. And it is very clear now that Podman is the day in, day out workstation. Buildah has its place, but it feels more for automation.
And that one guy on the team who's got to be different.
Yep. Goddamn Jimmy. Always a problem. Always a problem, Jimmy.
Everyone has that one person they picture in their head that they've dealt with. Like, really? We had one guy at Red Hat. I'm not going to name him. It's not really that obnoxious about him, but he was in QA and he wrote a whole bunch of automation using Clojure. And he was like the only QA engineer at the time who knew Clojure. And so he was the only one who could really fix it. And it did a lot of good stuff. But at the same time, you're also like, really? Like,
it's the only Clojure thing that we have. Like, it's cool that you know Clojure. That's awesome.
And it's fun that you wanted to play with it, but don't play on something that's got to last for years and years and keep an actual production level project. So that's what popped into my head. Like that one dude, he's like, this is cool. And that's very cool that you can do it, but should you?
You get hit by a bus. I'm not reading a book on Clojure.
That's right.
Right? It's that simple. You get to work on this when you're stuck in the hospital.
I mean, I don't know. Diversity's nice, but yeah, I agree.
Okay, so we got Podman, we got Buildah. So what was it called?
Skopeo.
That seems so not in scope of the Podman and Buildah, but was relatively. Can you put that link in? I'm not going to Google it because I will not be able to spell it in the chat, so I can just bring it up real quick.
Skopeo.
But
if you're on the GitHub repo, just go to containers if you want. That might be easier. because they're all in the same thing.
This thing.
Yep.
Yeah.
Hey, I've met this guy before.
Red Hat Dan.
Yep.
Who's that? Dan Walsh?
Yeah, he's the one who tried to teach me, what was it, SE Linux. And after coming out of that class and or talk, or whatever it was, I didn't understand SE Linux.
He's, I believe, the reason why Buildah is named and spelled the way it is because of his Boston accent.
Ah. Nice. Is there not a main site for this thing?
Is there not?
Actually, I'm not sure.
Yeah, I haven't made a video. I guess not. Yeah. It'll probably be Skopeo.io though. Hold on. Never mind.
Yeah, it's not. It's some kind of IDE.
Well, that's a problem.
Tough.
Yeah.
Yeah, interesting.
So yeah, but Skopeo is generally just the point or a command line tool that allows you to interact with an image repository and images, right? So you can move things back and forth. Inspect, there you go. So you could inspect, see what is actually, going on, what the JSON is for each point of that manifest. So you're seeing the Fedora, you can see that, oh, hey, there's multiple architectures, there's multiple images, all these tags, the layers that are involved, all that stuff. So you could work on the low level of containers with this, or sorry, of images with this. And the main purpose is to move them from place to place.
So no, just wget, tar, and curl? No.
Can you even wget an image out of a repo? A registry?
I mean, a container is just a tarball, right?
There's an API that you have to talk. But, if you probably make it that far to do it manually, in curl or wget, I'm sure you probably could figure it out.
It's true. That's a good point.
I mean, I think the better way of doing that, not that I'm trying to go into this argument, but I think you do more of a push-pull, no? Or push, retag, and pull, retag, and then push it, I think is how I've seen people do that in the past.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
I will be right back.
Oh, here's the installation. Jesus. It's really far down there. I really need to set up my KVM box. I can't do it to the end of August though. That's my my cutoff.
I looked and saw some project that some people said that they were using like a Raspberry Pi as an IP KVM for cheap.
Whoa.
And that's a pretty neat idea because IP KVMs are expensive. I mean, they're a couple $100 maybe.
Yeah.
And a Raspberry Pi with the basics to get that running, $40 or whatever. It's not bad. I haven't done it yet, but I've considered making one of them.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't think that it's too hard either. I think that you need like a USB on the go cable or a couple other random little weird things, but
I just got back. What are you talking about building?
Well, it's not, I don't think that there's too much building, but we're talking about KVMs. So they have IP KVMs that you could just access stuff, through the network and have keyboard, video, mouse, like all come through or whatever. I saw a project recently where they're doing that with a Raspberry Pi. So like IP KVMs are like hundreds of dollars. Raspberry Pi way cheaper. That might be a neat way to do an IP KVM. I'm not sure how mature the project is, but I did see that recently. It's kind of neat.
It is cool. I haven't used a KVM in years since I discovered Synergy.
Oh yeah, Synergy.
Yeah, that's the like my mouse will move over or whatever. I could interact with multiple desktops all in the same thing, right?
Yeah, and when it sets up, I've only ever done, I think I might have played with a third desktop, but right now it's my laptop is off to the side. And when I need to get over there, which is to say, change the movie on Netflix that I use it for, I just kind of slide the mouse over. But it can copy and paste between them. It's actually kind of cool. Also, I'm eating, which is why I'm not on camera right now. I'll be back in a second.
No worries.
Yeah, it's all good.
So yeah, Skopeo looks like it's just doing exactly what we want. So maybe we should just try to push up the one container that we built. Seem reasonable?
Yeah.
Oh yeah. From like where I generally like how I would do that is I'm generally probably using Podman. I have Podman on my machine. Like that does everything. Like that's what I'm going to use. But Skopeo is neat in that I'm pretty sure like the one unique thing is you could go from registry to registry if you have the, you know, credentials to do that. But outside of that, like generally from what we did, like my workflow pretty much probably would be if I'm going to push it to Quay or to Quay.io or Docker Hub or whatever, I would probably do build man build dot run it locally. But Buildah also is another way. Like I have that installed, but I generally would use Podman. And then pushing it, I would go from just, you know, Podman, tag that image and push it up. But if you do have the tools, you know, but they do similar things.
Nice. Okay.
So I guess what do we got to do? Log in first?
Yeah, I think so. I might have to go privacy screen here because I don't think. Yeah, hang on. So let's see here. Does it have something for Quay already or no?
What do you mean something for it?
What do you mean?
Can I be like Skopeo login Quay or whatever?
Yeah, Skopeo. I'm assuming if it works like Podman and the rest, just log in, just Quay.io.
Okay, hang on. Private screen. I gotta find all this shit. Oh, give me a minute. Give me a minute. Okay. There we go. So I've logged in. So now we should be able to do. Oh my God, what the hell is it? SKO Skopeo push local host or Podman.
Yeah, you got to tag it out of that local host.
Yeah, there we go.
Which always kind of threw me off. Like that took me a while to like wrap my head around that the registry is encoded in the tag. Maybe that's just a personal thing. I'm not saying it's a bad decision, but that definitely screwed me up. Also, no push is very surprising because it feels like a basic operation.
Yeah, that seems like a. There's no.
You do copy, so you're copying from local to.
That is horrible. That's horrible.
If you want the push, use Podman.
Oh God, what happened there? 2 arguments expected. What?
Oh.
No. That's not what I want. Oh my God. Uh-oh. Oh, there we go.
Yeah, I'm you would do Podman copy and then your local path. It's not as simple or not as easy as going from, just using a Docker or a Podman push.
Like this?
Yeah, I believe so.
There's no tag in that first one. I wonder if that's the issue.
So you need to add the
yeah, I don't think it was
the
even
protocol
one in the first place.
or whatever. You need to add OCI : localhost, I think, and I don't know if you need the two or the slashes from what I'm looking at, maybe.
Is there a way to see what it sees? Skopeo, like list or something? List tags. OCI / localhost.
And you've tried one slash, right?
Yeah.
I was going to say Docker. I wonder what other transports it supports.
Only Docker is currently supported.
Oh, okay.
I can't get into my own registry. Como? This is not making a lot of sense, my friends. We had two really good stories with Podman and Buildah.
Dang.
I mean, just in general, I don't know that I know what the story is for Skopeo to begin with. Like, I struggled a bit with Buildah to see the real good use case there. Skopeo, I feel like I'm struggling even more to understand.
The amount of, like, I guess, the basics that I know are it's those two things. You could inspect what's going on in the registry. So you could talk the container registry without having to know the API and actually get that detail and stuff, which you looked at, and that looks fine. And then the second one would be moving the images, and that's basically it. But like, it's not as simple, I guess, from going from like a local host or whatever to that. Like, I think that would be the standard Docker, Podman, whatever. But yeah, that being said, I'm on the same thing as Jay. Like, I think I've used it to go from an image registry to an image registry before, but I generally am using Podman to do that because that's the workflow that I'm more familiar with and that I've learned a lot more. Oops. There should be a way, though, to do like Skopeo. There should be a way to like list out what's there, what it can see, I think, but I'm not sure.
So I think some of this goes down to philosophy. Now, I did mention earlier, some of the tech underlying Podman build and Buildah build is shared between the two tools. And I think the reason why a Skopeo push doesn't exist is the whole idea of the Linux notion, do one thing and do it well. And I think that they didn't really want there to be a ton of crossover. Like, you would use the tool that does what you need to do. And it's seeming, based on kind of how we're doing things, what you want to do is use Podman in most cases. And Buildah has this very specific off case of, I want to use shell scripts to interact, to build up my image in my container. And then Skopeo seems to be this very specific, I want to copy between repositories. And this goes down to me never having worked on a developer team really pushing out a large scale versioned application, because I've never had to do these workflows. This is me just kind of basing off of what I've seen and things like that. So I don't know how common that is to be copying between them. But I mean, like I said, we put a fair amount into these projects, not in terms of like money and resources, but we talk about them consistently together. Like, these are the big, the three container related things.
If you have like an offline cluster or an offline set of thing, or, repository that you're running, like Skopeo is a tool that you could use to move things over. But exactly what you said, like generally like the workflow that I'm more familiar with, because I don't have those constraints. I don't need those constraints. But I've seen that in that case, you could, copy sets of stuff, I think, but I'm not completely 100% sure.
So tell me why this isn't working. I've logged in as myself.
Well, you need to push it to a repository that you have to create on Quay.io. So you have to go set up a repository.
Oh, you have to create one first. Okay.
There you go. So create new.
Like testing.
And change it to public, if that's what you want.
It is nothing works empty.
Like that. Ah, there we go. Okay, cool. That was like my one last little test. I wanted to see Quay actually working from what we've done.
Yeah, Quay, it's very similar, like where you don't feel the difference between Podman and Docker. You don't really feel it between Docker Hub and Quay. The biggest thing being the repo. So you didn't have to explicitly create testing ahead of time. You could have just typed it here, but it defaults it to private. So then you can't actually get it out. I take it back. It defaults it to private, and I think it would fail the push, but it would still create it. And then what I typically do is log into Quay.io, go, oh shit, I forgot to create this ahead of time, and then flip it to public. And Brian's laugh tells me you've done that work.
Do it anyway.
Yeah. Yes.
The Quay is nice, is it'll do security scanning on your image. So like that's something that you just get from using Quay.io. So once this uploads, you could look at it.
Nice.
I've totally been there before. It's like, when do you want to log in to Quay? Do you want to log in to the beginning or at the end?
Or it's step 0 when you tried it and you're like, son of a bitch.
Yeah, I can't access this.
I feel like we cover that most streams too. That one thing that ends up biting you all the time that you always forget. I forget what it was a couple weeks ago, but you saw me forget to type it a couple different times. I'm like, damn it! There's always that one little thing that you type wrong. So while that's pushing though, I think this was really cool because I've had some Podman experience, minimal Buildah. Like I wrote like a cheat sheet for it. But this was kind of neat. Like it's been something I'd wanted to do for a while, of really kind of dig into these 3 projects. Because like I said, you'll see them on slides together. You'll see them in presentations together, as these are our open source container mangling, wrong choice of words, so tired, tools. So it makes sense to have covered these together, even if Buildah and Skopeo are a bit on the specific side, niche side.
About to say experimental.
Yeah, I mean, experimental, the problem with experimental, the term there would be used if it's like pre 1.0 stuff that we're not quite sure has a future. This stuff I think is going to continue to live on. Just be very, very niche market for like when it's actually going to be used in this way.
Excellent.
I feel like we're getting close to wrapping up here. Obviously, we should take a little, tour of Quay, whatever. But it's been a good stream. I appreciate this. This is good stuff. This is real good stuff.
I'm just happy we could get the container image to work with the routing and everything. Oh my god, I have never seen anything like that my whole life.
Got that HTML down.
That is a cool experience. I'm actually super glad Cedric got to be part of that, because like the mental hurdles of going from, and he was directly on the host machine. He's got desktops behind him that we've worked on before. So if he was on that, it would be from his local laptop connecting to basically a separate machine that's the host with a VM on top of that and a container in there. And like the mental hurdles to like resolve that do get kind of wonky.
They do.
So like the number one like biggest thing that I learned, and I still follow this for troubleshooting, and it's the best like phrase ever: signal path. Always trace the way that things you think should go, and don't assume that something is set up and working the right way. So we had basically the troubleshooting we did, right? Where Vagrant has a VM that has a port that's forwarded. We had to make sure that we're hitting that right port. So signal path is always the right thing. So the traffic flow or whatever you want to call it. I learned that whenever I did like audio engineering stuff. And that legitimately is the number one thing that's like stuck with me for a while is signal path. And that's really important for troubleshooting when something doesn't work. So yeah, like we solved that.
That's a cool spin on it. And it's interesting too, for Cedric to see, because this is a world I've never really worked in either, where every time I've been on a project, I've been able to use my own hardware in some capacity, or I'll provision OpenShift on AWS, but that's not even really the same thing.
You mean the IBM Cloud?
The IBM Cloud. Of course. But I've never been in like a first like an environment where that was my only deployment mechanism. Like I'm playing with this demo I'm writing right now, and I want to write a series of articles on like kind of cloud native development processes of, okay, let's say I don't do it locally first and then push it up, because I've just never really done that. And like, you know, this is one of those cases where if you bought OpenShift and they're like, hey, this is what we want you to use, we're not sinking money into your local machines, you know, do it directly in the cloud. It's just a very different way of thinking about things. And, you know, this is kind of a little bit to what JJ has. And even if that's locally, like it's just a VM local on his machine as compared to installing all of this junk on his base laptop. And that was years and years of my career. I would just take my laptop or my desktop and install everything I want on it. And then after a while, it became too bloated or something got out of sync and you rebuild it and strip off what you don't need. When the better practice is to kind of compartmentalize things, have them in VMs and things like that. That extra container on VM though is particularly funny, of just like how many different little boxes can be shown. It's like nesting dolls, like ta-da, hello world.
Yep, we went real deep. Actually, real deep. But yeah, I guess just to finish off, this is Quay. As you see, that it's been pushed up. This security scan, Brian, you're talking about, I guess it's queued, so I guess we won't be able to see it.
If you refresh it might take a couple minutes since it get pushed, so it might show up.
What's this expires?
If you could set a tag to expire at a certain time.
Okay. So like deletes it from Quay?
I think so. I'm not sure.
Okay.
Yeah, me neither. One of those, again, I've never really necessarily worked in a good practices. It's all been my kind of ghetto stuff.
And it has a builder inside of it also, so you can like hook up your GitHub repos or whatever to it and it'll actually do it for you, which is nice.
Yeah, so on the repository, so if you create a new repository, you could also edit the config or whatever, that one, but creating the new, or yeah, go to the settings.
Yeah,
settings.
Excuse me.
You would have to, or click the gear, yeah. You have to set up a build, I think. We're going the wrong way. Yeah, no, that's not right. There's a config. I'm not exactly sure. I wasn't planning on quite demo. But there's a place in here to set up a build so that you could tie it to. Oh, because this was, hold on. Sorry, I'm like thinking out loud here. So this was an image that you pushed directly to Quay.
Yeah.
So this is set up that it knows that, hey, you just pushed an image to it by default. As far as I know, there's probably a way to change it, but I'm not sure. Creating a new repository you could say, hey, like connect to my GitHub and build the Docker file or do whatever, and it'll do all of that for you automatically. So you could use Quay to build and then automatically generate a container image based on the source code of particular tags or all the tags or branches in your Git repo, which is
nice.
neat.
That is really neat. Already it's better than the IBM container registry. It's already it is. And I learned this from you, Brian, the other day. Project Quay. Is it Quay project or Project Quay? I don't remember. Perfect. This is the actual, the actual site for it, where you can pull down the actual registry and run it yourself, which I thought was really, really cool. So
yeah, Quay is open source. The Project Quay, you could download, run this. Obviously, no support or all of that. You can use Quay.io for free. Software as a service. It's up in the cloud. Stuff will just work usually. And you could go to Quay Enterprise if you're running OpenShift or Kubernetes or whatnot. Quay Enterprise is the Red Hat supported, like, get this installed on the cluster and all that stuff. If you want to run the Quay image repository or image registry with Claire, so you could do security scanning, you could get all of these things like organization so that we could all collaborate with images and all of that stuff. Like all of that stuff supported in Quay Enterprise, just like it would be supported on Quay.io and the upstream Project Quay.
And that was a recent-ish thing, right? Open sourcing it.
Oh,
Like that was after we bought CoreOS, and then we had to go and retroactively do it. And that sounded like I was taking a shot at CoreOS. I really wasn't. Like we've definitely done that before, where we've had projects that started internal, and we're like, all right, we've got to go through the open sourcing process.
It was about, I don't know the exact timelines, that don't hold me, but I think it was like maybe a year and a half, 2 years or whatever from the CoreOS acquisition to Quay being open source. But it is open source now.
Yes.
Awesome.
Yeah,
well, I feel like that's a great place for us to end, gentlemen.
Yeah, it was a very cool stream. I'm glad we got a lot of success with the Podman stuff and even the Buildah stuff like that. It's a different approach, but it's kind of cool in its own way. So I'm very glad we got a chance to see it working, even if Cedric never got the autocomplete working on Bash.
Come on, Cedric. Come on, man.
Next time, next
We're
stream.
gonna have to figure that out.
Awesome.
I know.
Well,
I want that for next stream.
Yeah, right.
Or JJ might just switch to fish. We'll see.
There you go. No.
Will that happen?
No. Tune in next time to find out that JJ does not sign up for fish.
I know you said that about VI when we started this stream.
That's a good point. That was a good point. Now, all my muscle memories come back too, and it's just like I'm just flying around now. It's great. So, but anyway, all right.
Awesome.
I guess say bye, guys.
Happy weekend, everyone.
All right. Thanks for everyone for watching.
See ya.
Bye.